You got a tattoo, then you gotta have a story. Coming up is Corona. It's not the beer, it's the man, and you're gonna love it. Coming from Lake Elsinore.
Baseball guy here. I'm in Lake Elsinore, California. I'm at the Art of Rooster tattoo shop, and I've got one of the artists here, Corona. Corona, what's going on, buddy?
Another day in paradise. How you doing, man?
Excellent. And I'm really excited here because you've got some awesome tattoos, and you give some great tattoos.
And I love all my clients, to be honest. They all tell me great stories, and I get to tell them great stories of all the weird stuff that I've seen, witnessed, and whatnot from there.
All right, so what is some of the weird stuff that you've witnessed?
Top of my head, one of the weirdest moments I've ever seen in a tattoo shop was a lady that, to be quite blunt, she pooped herself getting a piercing in her belly button. The moment of release, she released.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would probably be. I think the icing to the cake was the fact the lady checked the piercer into the wall because she panicked the moment that needle went through her belly button, and she checked him into the wall and ran into the bathroom. We didn't realize what happened until we looked at the floor.
That kind of ruins the whole rest of the day, I'm thinking.
Oh, I thought it was great. I literally had to throw my machine down and tell my client at the time, "Oh, we're taking a break. I can't handle this." I walked outside because at that shop at the time, my window was on the outside of my booth, and I could watch the whole thing happen. So I literally took a break, walked outside, and just watched it almost like it was a movie scene at that point.
Tat-Stories becomes poop stories, folks. Oh my gosh. Any other stories you can think of that can come close to that one?
Oh, shoot. That were as funny as that? I'm not sure. That was pretty icy on the cake right there.
That is really good. Anybody just like freak out from pain?
Actually, I had a gentleman, I won't put his name on blast, but I had a gentleman just recently, a pretty big boy. Yes, it was his first tattoo on his chest, I'll give him that. But he spent the entire 3 to 4 hours screaming in my face. And when I say scream, I mean like it startled me repeatedly. Other artists in the shop were starting to get upset because they were even getting startled and almost jumping back because he couldn't contain himself. Until him, the only person that was a good runner-up was another gentleman, ironically, both gentlemen, that...
Women are so much tougher than men.
Always. Oh, I can vouch for that. The other gentleman kind of reminded me of the Exorcist when he was getting tattooed because he literally was doing this the whole time getting tattooed. To the point where I actually sleeved out his dad, and his dad's the one that brought me his son. And when his dad came in to check up on him, I think the dad was a little disappointed, and I even heard the word dignity being said out loud. So I even remember thinking like, oh, that's not the word that you want to hear your dad say.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So you've caused a little bit of pain on some people, but obviously they're wusses. What's your favorite style to tattoo?
My favorite style to do is my black and gray. I love doing realism. The vibrance of color always doesn't really carry over as well as black and gray to look realistic, at least to the illusion of the eye. I'm one of the few artists who can admit this. Another thing I love doing is cover-up work. I have multiple awards in it for a reason. I think it's because back in the day when I was the rookie, when people wanted cover-up came in, all the old-timers used to always pass it to the rookie because they didn't want to do it. I ended up learning an extra passion because of it, because I started realizing when people came in to get a tattoo in general, of course they're happy walking out the door like, oh, this is awesome. But to hear people come in and tell me stories about how they refuse to take their shirt off for like 5 to 10 years, they're so embarrassed. They go to the beach and would leave their shirt on the whole time. But when I'm done doing their cover up, next thing I know, I'm like, hey, do you want me to wrap up your tattoo? And they're like, no, I'm not even putting my shirt on. And they walk out here, chest out, all head proud. And it's like, you know what? That was so much more of a cooler vibe than the normal happy to get tattooed moment. Because It's like, oh, okay, I just literally, in a strange way with a tattoo, just changed your life. Now you're going to walk out and be happy. I mean, we live in Southern California, so everyone goes to the beach and the lake. So that person finally gets to now enjoy their life, going to the beach, going to the lake without their shirt on, not feeling embarrassed because of something they got years ago that, well, let's be honest, most of the tattoos, we all have at least one or two that we're like, yeah, that I remember that day. That probably shouldn't have happened.
A little too much alcohol, maybe.
Yeah, I got one in the back of my neck. I won't lie. I probably was like a 32 pack deep. And I remember waking up the next morning, looking in the mirror, and okay, long story short, we're supposed to be like a crown, tilted crown on top of a skull with bat wings across my trap neck area. It literally looks like the Punisher's skull's melting with Jack Skellington's fingers coming across my traps. And what was supposed to be a crown literally looks like a broken beer top.
Maybe it's from Corona beer at least, though, right?
Surprisingly, even though my last name is Corona, no, I gotta admit it was probably like Pabst Blue Ribbon or something.
Schlitz!
Yeah, it was during my punk rock days. I remember getting the person even tattooing at the time was like a lead singer of a black metal band. So I'm getting tattooed with all these weird medieval looking weapons all over the walls, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is I feel bad, yeah. And then I woke up the next morning and realized, oh, that's bad. Yesterday wasn't really that bad. That's bad. Worst part about it is every artist I've worked with in all these years, no one wants to even touch it. Everyone looks at it and goes, yeah, that's not for me.
And unfortunately, it's in a spot where you can't tattoo yourself there, right?
True. I've been able to fix a few tattoos of my own where someone started tattooing and I went, oh, nah, dude, just stop. Like my hand and my son's name on the back of my arm, pieces like that I can get a hold of. I fixed myself. But ironically, the one on the back of my neck, no one wants to touch, and there would be no way I could pull this one off. It'd be amusing if I tried, though.
The best tattoo artist to cover up work and can't do it himself. Another one that you couldn't do yourself, but when I look at it, freaking amazing. Tell me about this Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead Mary that you've got on top of your head.
Long story short, I always wanted to get the Day of the Dead Mary. Always wanted to get somewhere on my body. Never knew where to get it. Sadly, about 6 years ago or so, I was diagnosed with cancer, and it kind of put me in a different mindset at that point. Not only in the fact that I want to get stuff done and do stuff in my life that I started to realize, well, time is short. What am I waiting for? But on top of it, it finally gave me that moment where I went, you know what? That one tattoo, if there's ever a place I want to put it, it's actually going to be on the top of my head. It's going to be on my crown at that point. And it was one of the easiest tattoos. I don't know. It could have been because I was so pumped about it. It didn't even hurt. I remember sitting upright, didn't move a flinch. They were joking around, videotaping me while I was getting done because I was like greeting people at the front door. I was answering the shop phone. And literally it felt like someone with really long nails was just scratching at my head for 4 hours. Probably because I had so much adrenaline and excitement. It just got me right through it at that point.
How long did that one take?
Probably about 4 hours. Yeah, probably about 4 hours. It has to be one of my favorite tattoos because of the time frame, the reasoning behind it. I would say the second runner-up would definitely be my Wu-Tang on the side of my head, which every time I tattoo in New York when I'm on the subways, oh, I make friends. Like, as soon as they see that, they flock to me, and they're like, oh, you have the Wu on your head.
Now, you definitely represent some 90s music because you got Wu-Tang Clan there, and then you got some Zoot Scoot Boogie down here. Tell me about that one.
Oh, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy's always been one of my favorite Zoot Suit era type of music. I think that came from growing up around my grandfather. He was kind of a little bit more on the Pachuco side. He was military, Hispanic. Pachuco, I mean, you couldn't catch the guy without putting on some type of suit and slacks every day of his life. And I remember we didn't, even though color TV was already out and FM radio was out, that house, it was a time warp. I grew up in a time warp where it was AM radio, black and gray TV, still had the dials, the push buttons. I look back, I might as well have literally grew up in like a time capsule. I think that's also why I have the rockabilly tattoos and a lot of rockabilly influence too, because even on the other side of my family, my grandmother being a huge Elvis fan, which turned me into a huge Elvis fan, I couldn't help but like really dig that style of music. Even the more modern version of like what they call psychobilly, which is kind of like what I would call like a gothic punk version of rockabilly. Hence why I got them done looking like zombies.
And I noticed that you've got a good bit of color, and you told me the color kind of started with this one sugar skull over here. Tell me about that.
Yeah, probably about 12 to 13 years ago. I even remember his name. His name was Andy, one of the artists I worked with. All my work was black and gray. I loved the way it looked. He convinced me one day, being a sugar skull, that it needed to be color. It's not a sugar skull if it's not color. So, long story short, he convinced me. He colored it in, and that literally forced me to color so much more of my arms in because it looked really odd. I was just completely black and gray, and then this bright teal of all color tattoo popping off of my arm at that point.
So a sugar skull that's not color, is that like Splenda or Sweet and Low?
In their eyes, it was. I still do black and gray sugar skulls. I mean, I have technically, Day of the Dead wise, I have the top of my head, the back of my head. I have other pieces that are Day of the Dead that are black and gray. I love the way they look. Some way he got in my head that day and was just like, no, a sugar skull is supposed to be an actual cookie with colorful decorations on it. It needs to be color. Yeah, thanks, Andy. I still regret it. I appreciate that.
And he's like, yeah, all the cool kids have color in their tattoos. Come on. All right. Let's talk about your first ever tattoo. Tell me about that one.
I literally, the day I turned 18, my parents wanted to ask me what I want for my birthday. My first thought was, I'm 18 now. I want to go get a tattoo. Of course, I did the cliche rookie type of thing. I walked in the store and went, I want A3 that skull the top had. That's what I want. And sure enough, still this day, it's on my arm. I remember at the time, I even rocked just the goatee, and it has the not tobacco cigarette popping out of his mouth. So both of those at the time, I'm like, oh yeah, rebel. He's got my goatee and he's smoking.
That's so old, like rebel, because that kind of cigarette's legal now.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Times have changed, yeah. That doesn't really sound too rebellish now when I could run into someone's grandma at the store buying the same thing. Gotcha.
All right, now you've done a little work though on that tattoo since. So tell me about the surrounding pieces that you've done to it.
I ended up adding a horseshoe around it, kind of like my good luck charm. I've definitely, especially in my punk rock days, I've definitely did a lot of knucklehead stuff where I used to joke around saying I had a horseshoe up my. So over time, I ended up getting the horseshoe on my arm. I'm lucky it even looks right because I won't lie, I went into that shop a little tipsy that day, and I remember forcing the artist to do it on my arm. Like the guy didn't even want to do it, and I remember heckling him until he tattooed it. So it's not the prettiest looking horseshoe, but I got my horseshoe, I guess.
And it is up a little bit higher, so you can hide it if you want to. But it still looks pretty cool. And obviously a lot of great meaning, especially since it's attached to your first ever tattoo. Any plans for a next tattoo?
Actually, yeah. I have, like all of us that have tattoos, I got regretful tattoos. One of them is, not that I don't like the idea of having to smile now, cry later, but I got that on my arm up here done by someone that didn't do the greatest of jobs. I'm actually planning on not only covering that because it looks really hokey, to be honest, but this last spot that I have on the side of my head, that's actually where I plan on redoing it at this point. I just just haven't got around to it because I won't lie. The temple of everything on my body had to be the most painful area. It was the first time I had an artist literally yelling at me to hold still as I was curled up in the fetus position, like almost trembling because I didn't know what else to do with myself at that point. But I got him back. I ended up tattooing the side of that same artist's head. And what he did beat the royal flush. Went to go dip in ink. He dove off the table and bear hugged me like a boxer panicking, like literally did the boxer panic move. And I remember looking down and going, dude, what are you doing? He looks up at me. He's like, I panicked. And I was just like, all right, well, you could have said, let's take a break. You didn't have to do this. So needless to say, he released, got off my chair and ran for me for probably like a good 15, 20 minutes at that point.
He didn't poop himself, though, did he?
No, at least that story didn't turn into a poop yourself story. It's really strange over all the years. Poop stories end up being very common in tattoo shops. I remember when I got my first tattoo, I remember thinking it was so strange. The artist tattooing me and the artist next to him, the entire time, like an hour and a half, 2 hours of getting tattooed, that's all they were talking about was proper way to wipe. It was a really, I was just kind of like, I remember sitting there, I was trying to like, man up and just not move, not say a word. And the whole time I'm thinking, God, what a weird conversation to get stuck listening to. Like, these guys are really, like, one's really adamant about how he goes about it, and the other one's like, no, this is how you go about it. And I'll never forget that, not only because it was during my first tattoo, but, I mean, to hear two grown men argue about that was classy, guys, classy.
Only in the tattoo community, folks. Only in the tattoo community. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time today, Corona. This has been awesome. Really love this shop. It's called The Art of Rooster here in Lake Elsinore, California. If you want to get a great tattoo, this is your man, especially cover-up art, but he does everything and really loves that black and gray realism. We advise you to like this video, comment, talk about what your favorite piece is. If you have a great poop story, shoot that in the comments. I almost had a Freudian slip there. And pound that subscription button. Baseball guy, Corona, we out.